Hello everyone, welcome back to Defunct Maps, where I talk about old competitive maps and kind of look at how they might play today, as well as just kind of talk about them. Because there's some weird quirky stuff that people have played in past competitive seasons. And today we are on Edifice. So this was played one season in UGC Season 12. And, oh, is this actually... This looks like the Sunshine creator. Sunshine Reckoner, yeah. Very cool. Phi map. I did not know that until looking at the page now. But one thing that super stands out here. So for starters, there's an A and a B. So what's up with that? Well, as you will see, this is actually a bit of a gravel pit clone. Or at least a different take on the gravel pit format. So you have an A point here. And you have a B point over here, which is very neat. So I did actually, in anticipation of this, look up a gravel pit match, because I just was curious about how the map played. And I did find a nice map, and one of the casters actually was talking about how much he loves gravel pit, even though at the time, of course, people were talking about not liking it very much. Because, of course, it was a contentious game mode and map that eventually got phased out. However, Banny was there, and as far as the way they played it went, it was basically just standard Sixes classes, except the defenders had an engineer, which is a little curious. I would have expected maybe some more defensive off-classing, and maybe holding C, the other team, or the defending team may have ran like a sniper toward the spawn or something like that. As well as a little bit more defensive off classes. But as far as like holding B went, it was literally just standard setup with an engineer. One thing you'll notice as well, you might recognize C. I did when I first looked at this map like a year ago. It's in an old Star video, which is funny. I think he was like playing MGE or something. But yeah, that stuck out to me. I didn't know the map's name at the time, but yeah, this is Edifice. So anyway, let's just get started and look at it. So of course the gravel pit inspirations are obvious. And while the points themselves are a little bit different, you can still see like A lets out into this split tunnel, just like it does in gravel pit. And of course, I'm pretty sure, yup, there seems to be another connector between A and B with, again, another shed here. The point itself, and then if we go up here, there is a connector to C, which lets out here. And is this another connector to A? Interesting. That is unique to this map, because on Gravel Pit, you either go through the tunnel to get between A and B, or you have to go all the way out into C itself, versus here, there's kind of a concealed connector. It at least is like cut off from the C point, which is neat. But of course there is also a lot of stuff is just super interconnected here. Almost maze-like. This entire like lobby area is just very very connected, and there's a lot going on. So anyway, as far as how this would play, I imagine teams would probably still give up a point, like they do on Gravel Pit. Just because, I mean, it's very difficult to hold 2 points against a team that can just prioritize one and overload, because no matter how you split it up, you can literally just have one person on 1 point and then 5 on the other. The other team is still in a position to take an advantaged fight against those 5 players, and that's usually not something you like. So I think just in the format itself, you're gonna see a team just pick a point. Now, which point would be easier to hold? I'm not too sure. So it was A in the case of Gravel Pit. I do think, honestly, A seems pretty holdable right now. You have access to nice high ground, and some of this is like very weird. Super hard to stay on high ground. Now, where would a sentry gun be positioned as well? Because there are some decent, like this is a solid position. Honestly, something central, like on point, might be nice. There's definitely some decent sentry spots. The spawn itself does have some... Actually, it doesn't really have that much relative high ground. And can just get shut out by a position like this, and a position like this. It's going to be very difficult to get out of spawn, so of course you're going to have to play to wrap through lobby or whatnot and outmaneuver the other team. But overall, some interesting stuff. There is a fair amount of just kind of clutter. Like the fact that you can get on top of all those little beams up there is just weird. I would be surprised. I mean, Phi is a solid mapper, so I wouldn't be surprised if like a lot of this stuff is clipped off. And there won't be like the same kind of just rat hiding spots in random positions. Okay, this sign is not clipped off. I wonder about this event. But anyway, it's an interesting point. Let's look underneath here. So just a small pack on the point. Obviously, you're going to want to be playing high ground. And the defenders do have high ground here, which is a little different from, well, it is similar to the A point on Gravel Pit. But the fact that this is so much more enclosed than the A point, and just smaller in general, does lend itself towards being easier to defend. So that'd be interesting to see if this actually became the point that defenders would stick to. Let's take a look at B. So, of course, B on Gravel Pit is just a house, and you can be on top of the roof. You can be shooting rockets down at the point from the roof. A lot of that was cut out, and overall, this seems like a much easier point to push on the face of things. But there are some distinctions here. So, for starters, ooh, this is actually quite nice high ground. That gives you, like, a decent spam position and just good vision overall. So that's a really useful asset to have as an attacker. But usually the defense on B was you had a sentry gun behind the house, like on the low ground, and the other team would hold on the low ground there. Whereas here, the defending team has access to all this premium high ground to play around with, which is definitely nice and lends itself towards good defenses, but this is quite a nice position. Now, the fact that from here you cannot splash this area is a big deal, because of course a soldier here is going to be able to reliably splash rockets on any players trying to exit the spawn. So again, it's still very defender favored. But again, that's just kind of like the Gravel Pit way, where, yeah, if you just try and get through spawn and get to the point itself, it's going to be quite difficult. But when you have access to the other point and you can kind of maneuver around and potentially flank through lobby and whatnot, then things become a little different. Because, of course, you know, if you have access to A as the attacking team, then you can be shoving behind from lobby and then challenging that positioning over there, and potentially doing all sorts of things. So that's where like the actual gameplay comes out, is through that flanking kind of business. But yeah, it is a weird map overall, because I mean, Gravel Pit's just weird. Any other quirks here? There's just a lot of clutter. Like, areas like this don't really serve a purpose other than, I don't know, just taking up space, honestly. Generally, there's just so much going on, and a lot of beams, like visual clutter. Like the points themselves, both B and A, could definitely use some visual simplification. Because even if this were just all walls instead of like weird beams, then not only do you have reliable splash damage against a player up there, which you can splash them anyway against any of the beams, but it's just not as reliable. But also it's just easier to see. I don't know. It would make things simpler, I think. But yeah, let's go look at C. So there's a few ways to get there. Is there an underground path like there is on Gravel Pit? It does not appear so. Oh, it's actually on the opposite side. Interesting. So the kind of underground tunnel actually comes from B instead of A, which is different on this version. It's actually spottable from on top of the point. That's curious. So this route is not going to be as strong. I mean, it's not that strong anyway, because it's just kind of ultimate low ground. But the fact that it's spottable does make it a bit worse. Geometry on this kind of tower is honestly interesting. And there's a lot less real estate up top. So you do have cover, though, which is unique. But interestingly, the attackers have this nice position to challenge the point, and you can splash them on the point, and they can splash you right back. So you get to take, obviously, like, defenders are still a little bit more favored. They're on higher ground. But it's a very powerful position to challenge the point, whereas in Gravel Pit, not only was the point taller than it is here, but like your option for challenging it was just a soldier penciling up and then getting random crit air shot by a reptile, right? So last seems a lot, or I should just say C. It's not a 5 CP point. C seems a lot easier to push. Yeah, and the window's nice here. You actually get to see what there was a window on Gravel Pit, but this one seems a little more serviceable maybe. I'm curious what sentry positions you would even build. Like a gun kind of here would probably be very powerful. I don't know, there's random places that it can be spammed from, however, like, you know, if they're against that back wall, they're going to be able to see it, and you might be able to splash the gun through a sliver here. So the gun spots would be a bit precarious. But I imagine even like a gun here would watch all of that, and then if anyone tried to actually take space, like anywhere forward, it'd be watching that. And, you know, in the modern Sixes metagame, teams are good at holding doors, so, you know, they're pretty good about preventing a team from taking space over there and spamming down a gun, for instance. It's going to be difficult to do. Is this just a drop down? That's funny. I wonder if that was intended or designed with like pyro in mind to like flush people off. How would you get a pyro? I'm just conjecture. But yeah, there's a lot going on here on CP Edifice. Very strange map. Cool to see kind of a take on the Gravel Pit style attack defend map, built for a competitive setting, because again, I mean, Gravel Pit was unique until this map was made. Still got phased out. Overall, people prefer 5CP to this attack defend style, but it's an interesting take on the format, and obviously the Gravel Pit inspirations are definitely obvious. So anyway, cool map. I don't have as much in-depth stuff to talk about compared to the 5CP maps because I just play 5CP and I've never really played Gravel Pit. So anyway, hope it was still entertaining nonetheless, and I'll see you guys next time.